QuickBooks Online 2022. Getting access to the software for free? Get ready because it's go time with QuickBooks Online. The first question to ask when learning QuickBooks Online is, how do I get access to the software? And beyond that, how do I get access to software where I can practice putting data input into the system without having to worry about the current data that's currently in the system? In other words, you might already have access to a QuickBooks Online file through your work or through your own business file. These kind of QuickBooks files being used in practice, those are great tools because they already have data in the system, which is great for navigating. It's data that you're somewhat familiar with, which is nice to be looking at, and it's data that means something to you because it's part of something that you are involved in, which is great for learning as well. However, there's restrictions, and those restrictions will include the fact that you don't want to just be practicing data input into a file that's in practice because you don't want to mess up that current data file, and you can't really practice setting up the data file from a new system, which is helpful to learn a lot about how the whole accounting system is being set up. So what you would like to have, if you have access to a software in practice, that's a great tool, but you'd also like to have a system that you could basically practice with in terms of the navigation, as well as in terms of the setting up a new company file, because you're going to learn a lot through that process. So there's a couple different options that we have here. One is that Intuit, the owner of QuickBooks, often offers a free 30-day trial period. So we're going to go through these in more detail in a second. I'm just going to list them out first. The second is that if you're a student, QuickBooks sometimes offers then another student discount. So you would get the free option of it, but possibly not be limited to just 30 days. You might have a longer frame of time that you could be using that software to practice with. And there's also a free test drive file. So note that if you're not in a situation where you're working as an employee with QuickBooks Online, so you have access to a software there that you can like look around with navigation, or if you're in a system where you have your own business file, then we'd also like to have a file that already has data in the system so that we can practice navigation. And in this course, the first half of the course, we'll use this file because this will have sample data into the system, which will hopefully be the same for all of us so that we can look at it in the first half of the course. And then in the second half of the course, that's when we'll start up a new company file from start to finish, and we'll enter data into it. That's when you would like to have a clean file that doesn't have any data input in it, so that you can set up the whole groundwork process on which the accounting system is based. Then if you're looking to purchase the software, then you can obviously go to the Intuit website. We'll do that shortly in a future presentation. And you can also talk to your accountant or your CPA and see if they have any discounts that might be available, and talk to them what they think their best options would be at that point as well. This is a screenshot of the Intuit, owner of QuickBooks website. And as you can see here, we got the free trial for 30 days offered at this point in time. Now, before you set up the free trial for 30 days, note that in this course, we're not going to use the new company file that doesn't have any data in it, as you would have here if you set up the new 30-day free trial, until the second half of the course. Although I want to point out this option at this point in time so that you see that it's available to you. We will go into the process of setting up the free 30-day trial shortly, and we'll go into it in more detail. The reason we're not going to be using that file in the first half of the course is because it's easiest to first learn QuickBooks by learning the navigation, how to get around the QuickBooks system, where are the reports, where's the data input, and it's easiest to do that with a company file that already has data in it. So we're going to be using the test drive file, which is also free, for the first half of the course to practice navigation. And then in the second half of the course, that's when we'll start a new company file from scratch. That's when you would need a fresh company file, and that's when you want to be applying out this free 30-day trial so that we can practice the data input as well as setting up the foundations on which the data input will be built. The free student version is kind of like the free 30-day trial, except typically you have more than the 30 days to be practicing with, so you're not quite as restrained. There's a website over here that you can take a look at. Also, you would think that when you're searching for this free student version, you would go to the Intuit, owner of QuickBooks website, and try to search in that area. But I find it easier actually just to do a search on your favorite browser, like a Google search for the QuickBooks Online student version, and you might get to it a little bit faster. So here's just a snippet from their website so you can see if you might qualify for it. Students at accredited academic institutions are eligible for a 1-year student registration. College, university, and trade school students, please complete the form below to confirm eligibility and unlock your free license for QuickBooks Online. High school students, please have your teacher complete the educator registration. So you can think about if that would be something that would be useful for you. Then we have the free test drive. This is something that you'll just be accessing through an online website. We'll see how to get there in future presentations, where Intuit has basically set up a practice file for everybody to use. Everybody has access to it, and it's perfect then for navigation purposes. This is what we will use for the first half of the course. It's also free, and we're going to use it because we'll have the same kind of data in what you're looking at and that we are looking at, and because it already has the data input into it. Remember, in the second half of the course, that's when we want to start a new company file that doesn't have any data input into it, so that we can practice laying down the foundations to enter data into the system. The first half of the course, we're going to be working with a file that already has the data input in the system and practice navigating around the system. So we'll take a look at this, getting in there in future presentations. And then discounts, if you're looking to purchase the software, then you might want to ask, your accountant or your CPA, your tax preparer, and see what kind of options they have for the purchasing of the software. Here we are in the Intuit website. Now remember, Intuit is the owner of QuickBooks, so it's intuit.com. If you go here, then up top, they currently have the QuickBooks items. You can click on QuickBooks, and that'll take you to the QuickBooks section of the Intuit website. And this is where you can typically find this information with regards to the free 30-day trial. We'll go into that in more detail later. But again, remember that the first half of the course, we're not actually going to be using this file that doesn't have anything in it. We're going to need this fresh file in the second half of the course. So regulate your time accordingly with that free 30 days if you plan on using that. Then we have this item, which is the QuickBooks Online for students. Now, again, this is something that you would think would be easiest to find by going into the QuickBooks website or into the Intuit website and typing in the student version into the search field. But I find it easier that if you go into just a Google search and type in, QuickBooks Online free student version or something like that, you're more likely to find the direct link to where you want to go. I don't know why that really is. I would assume that on the Intuit websites, obviously they're trying to drive you to their big items that they're trying to sell stuff, of course, which would be QuickBooks Online. So it might be easier to do that search here. Also, the one that we're going to be working with, which will be the test drive file, is going to be here. This is another one where you would think it would be easiest to go into the Intuit or QuickBooks website and look for the test drive file. But this one will typically be easier if you go into a Google search or whatever your favorite browser is and say QuickBooks Online test drive, and that'll typically be an easier way to get there. I think this is going to be it. And then there's usually this little verification. So we will go into this multiple times in the future as we work with this test drive file for the first half of the course. But just realize that that it might be easier to get some of these files just from a normal browser type of search rather than going through the Intuit website.